Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of the Weightlifting House news show. Today we're going to go through everything that's been happening over the last week in the build-up to the Olympic Games. The Olympic Games starts tomorrow. Weightlifting finally, after this last 24 months of grueling, arduous, difficult qualifying period, we're finally here. So let's get into everything that you need to know. All of the biggest lifts, some news events at the end. And if you need to know where things are, like fixtures, results, timing, schedules, we have all of that over at weightliftinghouse.com. Now, this week's episode of the Weightlifting House news show is sponsored by the Weightlifting House store. You can get your new Weightlifting House Tokyo t-shirt along with a bunch of our new Weightlifting House Nation shirts. We've got a whole lot of stuff over at weightliftinghouse.com. We also have some new store pages which look really nice. So go ahead and check those out and support Weightlifting House. So most athletes have now arrived in Tokyo. They've been at the training hall. They've sort of been trickling in over this last, I'd say, week probably at this point. There are still a few athletes not yet there, but the large bulk of them are. I'm not going to go into too much depth about how the training hall looks. However, there is a video playing right now if you want to check it out. The place does look really awesome. Lots of space, no perspex separators between platforms, just a really nice training environment. So what I want to do is just go through some of the biggest lifts that have happened this week that are perhaps predictive or indicative of big performances to come. So the first lift that I want to start off with comes from the Armenian world record holder in the total. The world champion from 2019, we have Simon Martirosyan. Now, Simon Martirosyan is obviously the favorite going into Tokyo, but he had a little bit of a tougher time at the European Championships bombing out. He just, however, hit a 240 kilo clean and jerk in the training hall, which is making a huge statement to the other 109s, in particular Akbar Jarayev, who's really going to be fighting for certainly a silver, but maybe even the gold medal also. Having now seen the kind of shape that Simon Martirosyan is in, for him to equal his best ever clean and jerk in competition in the training hall with, 10 days to go before he competes, that's an incredible thing. He also then went on to hit a 170 kilo hang power snatch. I'm not quite sure what you'd call it, but probably more like a pow, but it was fast and easy. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Simon try and take back all of his world records and maybe even push for a 201, 242 type performance. Next, let's take a really quick look at some of the lifters from Team USA and some of their biggest lifts. We'll start off with Matty Rogers, who's going to be competing in the 87 kilo category. She just posted a video of a 136 kilo 1+2, 1 clean, 2 jerks, just a few kilos under her best in the single. CJ Cummings, a 73 kilo phenom, just hit 200 kilos for a front squat plus jerk. Now that is 2 kilos over Shi Ziyong's world record of 198 kilos. Of course, we've seen Shi do a little bit more in training, but 2 kilos over the world record. It's also 6 kilos over his own, CJ Cummings' own best clean and jerk. Of course, we haven't yet seen CJ clean it. Just because he can front squat and jerk it certainly doesn't mean that he can clean and jerk it, but we've never seen him put as much as 200 kilos overhead. Now, speaking of putting a lot of weight overhead, Kate Nye also just hit a new jerk PR at 153 kilos. She's going to be competing in that 76 kilo category next week. Okay, from Team USA now over to Team China. They arrived 2 days ago, so they've only had, as of this moment of recording, 1 training session so far, and we've not really seen a whole lot from them. But we have seen a few lifts. So Shi Ziyong, who's obviously the real gold medal contender for the 73 kilo category, holds all of the world records. He just hit a 130 kilo clean plus squat jerk. Liu Xiaojun hit 160 kilos in the clean and jerk. Li Wenwen, all of these people are, the chances of them not winning are somewhat slim. I think Liu Xiaojun is probably the most precarious of them all in terms of winning. But Li Wenwen just hit 200 kilos for a bunch of back squats. And then Wang Zuyu, 45 kilo muscle snatches, snatch, technique work type of things. So after seeing Team China, we now have Team Great Britain. Now, I don't think we've seen any lifts from Sarah Davies in the training hall. Perhaps she's just not posting. But we have seen lifts from the other girls that we've sent over. So Emily Campbell has hit sets of 2 in the back squat at 200 kilos, 205 kilos, and 210. She power cleaned 125 for a double, 130 for a single. But most impressively, just hit a very casual, very easy 150 kilo clean and jerk. Now, I believe that is either 3 or 4 kilos under her competition record. And it looked effortless. I'm pretty sure that she can probably push towards the 160 mark Whether or not she goes for 160, I don't know. It will all come down to what she needs to hit to get that bronze medal, I'd have thought, in competition. But it's certainly going to be in the high 150s. She also snatched 116 kilos, and it looked pretty easy for an opener. Sticking with Team GB, Zoe Smith, our 59-kilo weightlifter, just hit 150 kilos for a triple in the back squat, and Emily Godley, our 67, hit 150 kilos for 4 in the back squat, as well as a 120-kilo jug double. Boady Santavy from Canada has also looked like he was maybe one of the first weightlifters there, so a lot of what I've seen of the training hall and everything comes from him. So Boady just hit a 230-kilo front squat double. He has hit a 190-kilo behind the neck jerk, which in traditional Boady style just absolutely fires off his shoulders. Barely has to get under the bar, to be honest. It just pings up about a foot off his shoulders. And then a 140-kilo power snatch and a 150 pow snatch. You know, it wasn't quite full depth, wasn't quite a power, but right in and around there. Okay, and then the final athlete I want to talk about, the one that I'm sure lots of you have been excited to learn more about, is Lasha Talakhadze and what he's been doing in the build-up to this. We've obviously seen him hit heavier lifts than anyone has ever hit, ever, over the last few months in competition and out of, but he's been doing some pretty big accessories in the training hall. I think the thing that is most notable is this 140-kilo muscle snatch triple. Now, the reason for that is because back in 2019, he would hit 140 kilos for his sort of heavy light day for a muscle snatch for a single, and then on the lighter light days he'd do 120 kilos for a triple. Now 2 years later he's tripling that 140, and I wouldn't be surprised if today, tomorrow, in a couple of days we see him hit something more like a 150 or a 160 muscle snatch single. So stay tuned for that. I can't guarantee it, but I have a feeling that that's going to happen. He also hit a 195-kilo no-foot snatch, 185-kilo snatch push press for triples, and I think maybe most notably in the strength side, a 315-kilo back squat triple also. So 3 pieces of other news that we should go through. Fernando Reis, the 109 plus from Brazil, has tested positive for growth hormone from a test that he received back on the 11th of June of this year. He also tested positive back in 2011 for methylhexanamine. And with lifts of 201 in the snatch and 240 in the clean and jerk, Fernando really was a pretty strong medal contender. Whether or not it was going to be silver or bronze, I don't know, but he was certainly in amongst those aiming for a medal. And so, of course, that now leaves the door open for a few other supers poised around those numbers. We've got guys like Ali Davoudi, Walid Bidani, Manasad, and maybe, but possibly not, Hoja Mohammed Toychev, who I've always loved him as a lifter, but he seems to be almost getting progressively weaker at this point. The next story is Romania's 64 Loredana Toma has failed her dispute where she challenged her removal from the games. So, according to Brian Oliver, this is a quote from him, the case was dismissed without being heard by the Court of Arbitration for Sport, the CAS, as it ruled that it had no jurisdiction in the matter. Loredana Toma was not happy. She posted on Instagram saying, "I hope you all burn in hell." But shortly after posting that, she deleted it. So that's a confirmation. We will not be seeing Toma at the Olympics. Like I've said over the last few weeks, my money now is on Maud Charon from Canada. And then the final piece of news is Arley Mendez, who I mentioned a couple of weeks ago had been popped for smoking marijuana, or at least having it in his system. He has just been approved by the ITA, the International Testing Agency, and is now allowed to compete in Tokyo despite failing that test. He served a 1-month ban for it, which literally just ended, so he's now eligible to compete again. He also, interestingly enough, has put up the second highest entry total in that 81 kilo category of 370 kilos. Liu Xiaojun put up 368, so even less, but it was Brian Rodalegas who's put in the highest entry total at 375. I don't think that's hugely indicative or predictive of what's going to happen, but even so, interesting to see how people are sort of playing the psychological game weeks out in advance. And that's absolutely everything for this week, guys. Don't forget, this episode is sponsored by the Weightlifting House store. Get this t-shirt amongst others, straps, wraps, tapes, bars. We've got a whole lot of stuff over at weightliftinghouse.com. Also, if you want to check out our Tokyo hub, I'll put a link down below. You'll be able to look at results. You'll be able to look at the schedule, written updates on what's going on. And we will be releasing very short daily update videos after every single session, talking about what happened, why it happened, and maybe some of the key moments and highlights from those sessions. See you all tomorrow.